The suitcase wasn't supposed to be zipped shut yet. I had promised myself I'd wait. At least hear her out. At least look her in the eyes before I made the final decision. But I couldn't. My hands zipped it up on their own. Quietly. No drama. Just this soft, inevitable sound that felt louder than a scream in our silent living room. I had left it by the door. Next to it was an envelope. White, heavy, almost shaking with everything stuffed inside. A photo. A printout. A copy of her wedding deposit. A note. And my ring. Not hers. Mine. The one I had taken off before she even got home. And then I just waited. That was 12 minutes before she walked in. 12 minutes of pacing. Sitting. Standing again. Trying not to throw up. Trying not to cry before she even saw it. You know that feeling when your throat is too small to breathe but too wide to scream? That was me. Just a man standing in a house that used to feel like a home, rehearsing lines for a confrontation he never wanted. The lock turned. Her voice came first. I'm home. Too cheerful. Like someone returning from vacation. Like a person who had nothing to hide. She laughed to herself about something as she closed the door. I could hear her heels clicking softly on the tile. Then silence. Then I saw her. And she saw everything. The suitcase. The envelope. Me, standing completely still like a ghost in the corner. Her smile collapsed so fast it almost made a sound. She didn't say anything at first. Just blinked. Like the scene in front of her was glitching and she was trying to refresh it. Like she could reset the moment if she just acted confused enough. But I didn't speak either. I couldn't. The only thing louder than the silence was my heartbeat pounding behind my ribs like it wanted out. She finally asked, "What is this?" And I wish I could tell you I answered her like a strong man. Like a brave one. Like someone who held his head high and read out a speech that made her crumble in guilt and regret. But no. I just pointed at the envelope. That's it. I pointed. Because the last 2 days had drained every ounce of strength I had left. 42 hours since she left for her girls-only bachelorette weekend. 17 hours since I saw the video that cracked my world open like cheap glass. 4 hours since I printed the screenshot. 2 hours since I took off my ring. And now this. She picked up the envelope like it was radioactive. Hesitated. Opened it. The moment she unfolded the photo, her body shifted. Her hand went straight to her mouth. Her eyes darted to me like she wanted to say something, then down again, like maybe she could deny it if she didn't look directly at me. But I had seen it. Her. In a booth. Sitting half in some guy's lap. Same white dress she left in. One hand holding a drink. The other tangled in his hair. His lips at her neck. The video wasn't even meant for me. It was on someone else's story. Some random friend of a friend at the same club. But it was her. Clear as daylight. No excuses left. I was drunk, she finally mumbled. That's all she had. Not sorry. Not ashamed. Just, I was drunk. I laughed. It wasn't a real laugh. It was one of those broken, stunned exhales that sounds like laughing only because crying would be too humiliating. I know, I said quietly. That's why I packed the Advil. She looked at the suitcase like it had teeth. You're really doing this? I didn't answer. Because I wasn't doing anything. She already had. She didn't touch the suitcase. Didn't even move closer. It sat there like a coiled animal, waiting for her to admit something she wasn't ready to face. I watched her try to breathe through it, her chest rising unevenly, hands trembling, mouth opening like she had 100 lies ready but couldn't pick the safest one to use. Her eyes scanned the room like she was looking for something else to blame. Me? The situation? The lighting? You set this up, she finally said, voice barely above a whisper. That question hit me sideways. Like I was the one who had orchestrated the betrayal. Like I had hired the guy, filmed the scene, and planted it in her weekend like a landmine. I shook my head once. I could feel the heat in my face rising, not anger, just that helplessness that comes from being accused of ruining something you were desperately trying to protect. I didn't set anything up, I said, almost choking on the words. You just walked into what you built. She turned then, walked halfway across the room, and sat on the edge of the couch. She didn't look at me. Just stared straight ahead like she was trying to teleport somewhere safer. Somewhere less real. I stayed standing. Couldn't sit. Couldn't move. My knees wouldn't let me relax, and my heart was still in fight or faint mode. The silence stretched long. But it wasn't empty. It was heavy. It held every phone call she didn't answer. Every night she came home too tired. Every sudden plan that didn't quite make sense. All of it had found its way into the air now, thick and inescapable. Finally, she spoke again. It didn't mean anything. She said it so softly, like that would make it easier to swallow. I nodded, not because I believed her, but because I'd already heard that sentence in my head for days. I was expecting it, preparing for it. It didn't mean anything. The anthem of the guilty who want to be forgiven without bleeding. Then why hide it? I asked, keeping my voice from cracking by clenching my teeth. Why delete the texts? Why not call me back when I asked how the night was going? Why do I have to find out from some stranger's story instead of you? She flinched at that, just barely, but it gave me the first taste of truth. The first sliver of confirmation that yes, I wasn't crazy. I hadn't imagined the distance. I hadn't been paranoid. I was just inconvenient to the part of her that wanted to be someone else when I wasn't watching. I messed up, she finally said, tears starting to form, not the dramatic ones, but the quiet ones. The ones people cry when they're still trying to look like the victim of their own choices. It was a wild night. Everyone was drinking. I didn't think it would turn into anything. I asked, "You mean him?" She didn't answer that. Instead, she said something I'll never forget. I just wanted to feel free for one last time. Before settling down, that sentence shattered whatever was left of the illusion. One last time. Like I was a cage. Like marrying me was the end of her life, and she had to squeeze in one final thrill before she signed the paperwork and locked the door behind her. I sat down then, not because I wanted to, but because I suddenly felt too weak to stand. My whole body had gone cold. My fingers were numb, and I couldn't tell if I was furious or heartbroken or both or neither. Maybe I was just empty. She finally got up, walked over slowly, and reached for the suitcase. "What happens now?" she asked. I didn't stop her. I didn't scream. I didn't throw anything or call her names. I just looked at her and said the truest thing I've said in years. "I think you already know." And as she lifted the handle, the silence between us said everything we didn't have the strength to. She didn't leave right away. That surprised me. She stood there holding the suitcase handle, her grip limp, like she wasn't sure whether to take it or throw it across the room. Her eyes were puffy now, like the reality had finally started sinking past her defenses. I didn't say anything else. I was done talking. There was no dramatic speech left in me. All I had left was this aching tightness in my chest and the desperate hope that if I stayed still long enough, maybe time would reverse itself. But it didn't. Instead, she dropped the handle and sat down on the ottoman like her legs gave out. The air between us turned thick with unfinished arguments, memories still clinging to the furniture, and that unbearable discomfort of two people who just realized they never actually knew each other. "You want me to explain it, don't you?" she finally asked, not looking at me. "No," I said after a long pause. "I want you to admit it." She blinked slowly, as if trying to delay whatever part of the truth she was going to say. Then she leaned forward, elbows on her knees, and let the words fall out in pieces. It was just a moment. I didn't plan it. I was dancing, I was drunk, and he kissed me first. I didn't stop it right away. I should have. I know that. I hated myself for it the second it happened. But I didn't do anything else. We didn't sleep together. It was just stupid. Just one of those mistakes you make when you forget what's waiting for you at home. I stared at her, not in anger, in awe, that she could still try to word it in a way that painted her as impulsive, but not disloyal. That she was still trying to keep a fraction of herself clean. Like if she could just frame it as an accident, the rest of our foundation wouldn't rot underneath it. "You keep saying it didn't mean anything," I said, almost to myself. "But you know what? That makes it worse." Her head snapped toward me, confused, caught off guard. "If it meant something," I continued, "then at least it would have been honest. At least it would have been about love, or hurt, or some kind of emotional truth. But this? You're saying it meant nothing. That I meant nothing in that moment. That what we built could be tossed aside for nothing. Do you get that?" She wiped her cheek. "I didn't mean." "Yes, you did," I cut in, gently. "You meant it when you didn't call. You meant it when you smiled in that video. You meant it when you lied about your night. That's the part you won't say out loud." Her silence was the loudest it had ever been. I stood up and walked toward the window, not to make a point, but because I couldn't sit in that room anymore. The walls felt too tight. The photos on the wall looked like lies. Her coat still hung on the hook by the door like it didn't know it was about to belong to a stranger. I pressed my forehead against the cool glass, watching the streetlights flicker. It felt like I was staring at the world from inside a fishbowl, everything distorted and unreal. I remembered the first time she told me she loved me. It was in this room, on that couch. She wore her oversized sweatshirt, the one I bought her during our first road trip, and she said it so casually, like she'd known it for years. And now here we were, Different people in the same room. She finally spoke again, this time with a voice that sounded less like guilt and more like fear. Do you still want to marry me? That question dropped like a stone between us. I closed my eyes. For a second, I imagined saying yes. I imagined pretending it didn't matter. I imagined putting that ring back on her finger and smiling through it all like a man too weak to walk away. But when I turned around, something inside me had already shifted. I wanted to marry someone who respected us both enough not to ask that question. Her face fell. And I swear, in that second, I could see the real her again, the version that laughed at my awful jokes, that cried during commercials, that used to dance barefoot in our kitchen at midnight. But it didn't matter. Because I also saw the version who disappeared into someone else's arms and came home trying to rewrite the ending. She stood slowly, walked to the suitcase, and sipped it again, this time without hesitation. I'm going to stay with Alana, she said. I'll come back for the rest of my things later. I nodded, not out of agreement, but because I had no strength left to fight. She opened the door, then paused. I did love you, you know. I didn't respond. Because maybe she did, but not enough. And not when it counted. The door clicked shut, and I didn't move. I didn't follow her to watch her leave. I didn't check the window to see if she turned around. I just stood in the middle of our living room, staring at the now empty space where her suitcase had been. You'd think silence would feel like peace. But it didn't. It felt like a vacuum pulling the air out of the room 1 second at a time. I didn't know what to do. So I did what I always do when I break. I started cleaning. That stupid, automatic, mechanical habit of mine. I picked up the glass she left on the side table. Folded the blanket she always kicked off her legs while watching TV. Put her phone charger into the drawer even though she'd probably be back for it soon. It wasn't about tidying. It was about control. Everything around me had just fallen off a cliff, but if I could make the cushion straight, maybe I'd believe for a second that something still made sense. I didn't sleep that night. I lay on the couch with the lights off and my eyes open, replaying her voice over and over. I just wanted to feel free one last time. That sentence circled my head like vultures around something dying. By morning, I still hadn't cried. Just dry-heaved in the bathroom and drank 2 cups of coffee I barely tasted. My phone buzzed a few times, messages from my best friend Jake, a missed call from my sister, a group chat ping with a wedding planning update from the venue coordinator. I turned the phone over face down. I wasn't ready to answer to anyone. But life doesn't wait for your permission. Around noon, the doorbell rang. I nearly didn't answer. I thought it might be her again. Maybe coming back for round 2 of excuses. Or maybe to pick up more of her stuff. But when I opened the door, it wasn't her. It was Alana, her best friend. The one who had organized the bachelorette party. The one who'd supposedly been watching over everyone. I stared at her for a moment, not saying a word. She looked exhausted, eyes ringed with guilt, hair tied in a rushed bun, oversized hoodie swallowing her frame like she hadn't slept either. She didn't ask to come in. She just handed me something. Her phone. Unlocked. Open to the Photos app. You need to see this, she said, eyes wet. I didn't want to. I really didn't. But I took the phone. And what I saw, it was worse than what I already knew. It was video footage not meant for me. Footage she had accidentally recorded when her camera was on selfie mode, facing the floor, still recording while sitting on a bench outside the club. You could hear Brielle's voice in the background. Clearly. Laughing, drunk, but with the kind of truth people say only when they don't think it'll ever echo back. I don't even think I'm going to go through with it, she said, slurring slightly. I mean, Miles is. He's sweet. But it's like being loved by a houseplant. Reliable. Predictable. I need something. Real. Something that moves me. You know. Then another voice, male, responded, too low to catch fully. Laughter followed. Then silence. Then kissing sounds. Then, nothing. I froze. I could feel my hands go cold around the phone, like it had poisoned me just by showing me the truth. My ears were ringing. My chest was tight. My mind didn't know whether to scream or shut down completely. Alana was crying now. I didn't know, she said. I swear. I was inside. I thought she was just outside calling her mom or something. I nodded, still silent. This wasn't just betrayal anymore. This was betrayal laced with contempt. She didn't just cheat. She ridiculed me. Behind my back. To a stranger. At a party celebrating our wedding. She compared me to a houseplant. The worst part? I got it. I knew what she meant. I had always been the soft one. The one who planned things, who checked in too often, who said sorry too quickly. I didn't challenge her. I didn't thrill her. I just loved her. Genuinely. Quietly. in my own way, but it hadn't been enough. And now I had the audio proof. Alana didn't say much else. She apologized. Over and over. Told me she'd support whatever I chose. Then she left. I stood in the hallway for a long time holding that phone like it was a weapon. And then I made a decision. Not to scream. Not to cry. But to act. If Brielle wanted something real, then I was going to show her just how real consequences could feel. It wasn't revenge I wanted. Not exactly. I wasn't interested in public shaming or screaming matches or making her beg at my feet. That's not who I am. Honestly, I don't think I even had the energy for anger. What I felt was something colder. Emptier. Like someone had gutted my soul and left only echoes of what I used to believe about love. It was grief, but not for a person. It was grief for the version of my life that would never exist now. And still, I couldn't just walk away quietly. Not after everything. So I spent that evening doing what I knew how to do, organizing, planning, thinking in outlines and logistics, the way I always do when I'm overwhelmed. If I couldn't hold my heart together, I could at least hold my steps together. I took out a notebook and started writing. Not poetry, not my usual nonsense. This was a timeline. Of us. Of her. Of every little sign I missed. Then I flipped the page and wrote one word at the top. Truth. That night, I crafted a message. Not to her, but to someone else. A group of people, actually. My family. Her family. Our closest friends. Our bridal party. The people who had poured time, money, effort, and love into making our wedding happen. The ones who deserved honesty, too. I didn't send it yet. I saved it in drafts. I needed one more piece to fall into place first. The next morning, I took the day off work. Called in sick. I guess in a way, I wasn't lying. I wasn't okay. I hadn't slept. My hands still shook every time I thought of her voice in that video calling me a houseplant, like I was something decorative. Something that didn't matter unless you needed background color. I went out to clear my head. Got a coffee. Walked through the park where we used to picnic. Every bench felt haunted. I saw a couple laughing over a smoothie, and it almost made me cry, not because I missed her, but because I missed believing that kind of laughter meant something. When I got home, there was an envelope under the door. No return address. Just my name. Inside was a letter. Handwritten. From her. Miles. I know I hurt you more than I can ever undo. I know saying sorry is hollow now, but I needed to say it anyway. I was selfish, reckless, and cruel. I was trying to test boundaries I should have respected, and in doing so, I destroyed the only good thing I've ever had. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't even expect a response. I just wanted you to know I wasn't pretending to love you all those years. I did love you, but I wasn't ready to be loved the way you did it. I mistook your gentleness for weakness. That's on me. I'll be out of your life for good now. I won't show up at the wedding. I won't make this worse. But please, don't hate me forever. I hate myself enough for both of us. Brielle. For a moment, I felt something crack. Maybe it was pity. Maybe it was a flicker of the old affection, triggered by her handwriting or the mention of our shared history. But it didn't last. Because as I finished the letter, my phone buzzed again. It was Jake, my best man. Bro, I don't even know what to say. I saw the clip Alana sent. Jesus. I'm here if you need anything. And I'm still down to cancel the venue booking or blow up the whole group chat if that's what you want. Just say the word. I stared at the message for a long time. My thumb hovered over the screen. Then I went back to the draft message I'd written the night before. I made a few edits. And I hit send. One by one, phones buzzed across the city. Across our families. Across the fragile social web we had built together. And with every ding, a little more of the lie unraveled. I hadn't gone public. I hadn't shamed her with photos or screenshots or captions in all caps. No, I kept it calm, gentle, devastatingly simple. Hi everyone. This is painful to write, but I've decided to cancel the wedding. Brielle and I have experienced something that we can't come back from. I'm not looking for pity or for anyone to pick sides. I just want to move forward in honesty. Thank you to every one of you who supported us. Please understand this isn't a scandal. It's just the truth. And I'm finally choosing to face it. I turned my phone off after that. I didn't want to see the replies. Not yet. Not until I could breathe again without wondering if she was still shaping my life from a distance. That night, for the first time in days, I actually slept. But the next morning, I woke up to something I didn't expect at all. A knock at the door. And behind it, her mother, holding a folder, with a look on her face that said, "You don't know the half of it yet." When I opened the door and saw her mother standing there, I honestly thought I was still half dreaming. It was early. Too early for anyone to show up without warning, let alone the woman who had once hugged me and called me the best thing that ever happened to Brielle. But there she was, standing on my porch with windblown hair, a large manila folder clutched against her chest like it was radioactive, and a look in her eyes I couldn't place. It wasn't grief. It wasn't judgment. It was something more complicated, like a mixture of guilt, sadness, and urgency. She didn't ask to come in. She walked past me without a word, sat on the same ottoman her daughter had cried on days earlier, and exhaled like she'd been holding something in for years. I didn't sit. I stayed standing with my back against the door, unsure whether to brace for another emotional landslide or call the cops. I saw your message, she finally said, her voice hoarse. I figured you wouldn't pick up if I called. She was right. I wouldn't have. I'm not here to defend her, she added quickly. I'm not even sure I could. But I think there's something you deserve to know. And before you tell me to leave, please just let me show you this. She slid the folder across the coffee table, the edge catching slightly on the corner. I stared at it, hesitant, but curiosity always wins with me. Always has. Maybe that's part of what Brielle found so boring. A man more interested in explanations than explosions. I opened the folder. Inside were a series of printed emails. Dozens of them. Some dated recently. Some from almost a year ago. They were all addressed to Brielle, from someone named Alex. Each with subject lines like, "Can't stop thinking about you," and "I meant what I said." I started reading. The tone was personal, romantic, familiar. The kind of writing that only exists between two people who know exactly how far they've crossed the line. Mentions of hotels, secret meetups, private numbers, references to our weekend in Denver, and even one that said, "I hate the idea of you marrying him. It feels like watching a lie take root." My breath caught. "Denver?" I asked, already knowing the answer. Her mother nodded slowly. "She told you it was a girl's trip." I sank into the armchair. My legs wouldn't hold me anymore. "She's been lying longer than you thought," she said quietly. "And before you ask, no, I didn't condone it. I only found out about all this last month." She left her email open on my laptop when she was home helping me with taxes. I didn't go looking for it. I stumbled into it. And when I confronted her, she begged me not to say anything. She said she'd ended it and was going to do the right thing. I stared at the emails, at the dates, at the desperation in Alex's messages and the silence in her replies. That was the worst part. She hadn't even pushed him away. She'd let him dangle. She kept his affection on a leash, feeding him just enough to keep him hopeful while feeding me the illusion of trust. She used to be different, her mother whispered. When her dad left, something shifted in her. She stopped believing in steady things, started chasing moments. I hoped you were the one who could help her find peace again. But I guess she didn't want peace. She wanted fireworks. She looked at me then, and her face broke. "I'm sorry you got caught in this. I really, really am. You deserved better than her." And I think, deep down, even she knew that. I didn't respond. I couldn't. The betrayal no longer felt like a sudden event. It felt systemic, rooted, cultivated behind my back like a second relationship growing quietly while I watered a garden that was already dying. I thought the bachelorette weekend was the final straw, but now it felt like that was just the leak that finally cracked the dam wide open. Her mother stood to leave. She paused at the door. "I won't tell you what to do with this," she said, nodding toward the folder. "But if you want the full truth, the man's name is Alex Palmer. He works in consulting, Chicago-based. They met during a client dinner 2 years ago. It's been off and on ever since. The night before she came back from her trip, she was with him. I know. She called me afterward, said she felt lost. I think what she really meant was she'd lost you and didn't know it yet. Then she left. No dramatic exit. Just the soft click of the door again. Only this time, I wasn't paralyzed. I stood, grabbed the folder, and walked straight to my bedroom. Pulled out the wedding box. The one with the guest list, the favors, the vows I hadn't finished writing. I dropped the folder inside. Then I closed the box for good. I wasn't just canceling a wedding anymore. I was burying something I'd spent 4 years building. And for the first time, I felt like maybe I'd finally stopped watering the weeds. I didn't tell anyone about the visit from her mother. Not Jake. Not my sister. Not even Alana, who had been texting every few hours to check if I was breathing. I didn't want sympathy or advice or someone to tell me I had dodged a bullet. I wasn't looking for closure anymore. I was standing in the smoldering aftermath, trying to figure out how much of my identity had burned with the wreckage. I thought the story was finished. I thought the worst of it had already collapsed. But life doesn't work like that. Not when people still have secrets, and certainly not when they feel the need to confess something before someone else does it for them. It happened the following afternoon. I was on my way back from the print shop. I'd gone there to pick up new headshots for work, thinking maybe it would force me to re-anchor myself, to try and exist again outside of the ashes of my failed engagement. I was halfway to my apartment when a notification popped up on my phone. It was an email from someone I didn't recognize at first. Subject: I'm sorry, you don't know me, but I know who you are. At first, I assumed it was spam. Another scam, maybe even a twisted troll who had seen the whispers start to bubble up online about the canceled wedding. But then I opened it, and my heart dropped into my stomach. Miles. My name is Alex Palmer. I don't expect you to know me, but I suspect by now you do. I'm the man Brielle's been talking to. I didn't know the whole truth. Not until a few days ago. She told me she was engaged, yes, but she painted it as a complicated situation. She told me you two were already falling apart, that the wedding was something she was being pressured into, mostly for family reasons. That she tried to break things off but felt trapped. I know now how much of that was a lie. She never told me your name. I only found out after her mother sent me your wedding cancellation message, which, believe it or not, got forwarded around through one of her cousins who works at the same firm I do. The second I heard it, I knew I had been part of something disgusting. I didn't mean to hurt you, but I know I did. And I'm sorry. I've cut off all contact with her. I'm not reaching out to cause more pain. I just wanted to tell you, man to man, that I didn't know, and that you deserve someone who loves you out loud, not in the margins. Take care of yourself. Alex. I just stood there on the sidewalk, staring at the message, cars rushing past behind me, the city oblivious to the moment my reality shifted again. I felt numb. I'd spent so long imagining Alex as the villain, as the smug, confident stranger who had stolen something that was never his. But this was the worst-case scenario because it confirmed something even darker. There was no villain, only her. She had manipulated both of us, spun two different stories, built two different lies, and neither of us had seen the full picture until now. I walked straight home, locked the door behind me, sat on the floor with my back against the wall like a man preparing for an aftershock. And I played the memory of our last date night in my head, sushi on the patio, her barefoot with a wine glass, me talking about honeymoon ideas. And I remembered something I hadn't noticed then. She had smiled the whole time. Not the way people smile when they're happy, but the way someone smiles when they know they're living a double life and the other person is too naive to suspect it. And then, like a slow rising tide, another feeling started to spread through me. Not rage, not despair, relief. I didn't belong in that relationship. I had loved her from a place of gentleness, and she had used that gentleness like a shield to cover her own chaos. She never wanted someone steady, she wanted someone she could outmaneuver. Someone whose silence she could control. Someone who made her feel bigger just by being smaller. And for years, I had fit that mold perfectly. But not anymore. I grabbed my phone and opened a new message. This time, I wasn't writing to family, or friends, or exes. I was writing to myself. A note, titled, Non-Negotiables. And I started to write the rules for whoever would come next, if anyone ever would. No more relationships where I feel like I have to apologize for who I am. No more hiding parts of myself to keep someone else comfortable. No more trusting words without actions to match. No more women who smile like they're hiding a backup plan. No more mistaking chaos for chemistry. And never again will I build a future on top of someone else's unfinished past. I didn't cry. Not that day. Not even when I deleted our old photos. But when I reached for the wedding playlist we'd made together and hovered my finger over our song, I hesitated. And then I played it. All the way through. Not because I missed her, but because I wanted to make sure the sound of us didn't haunt me anymore. It took 3 more days for her to finally reach out. I had been waiting for it in a distant, detached kind of way, like waiting for the final page of a book you've already figured out but still feel obligated to finish. The message came in the form of a long, winding text. No greeting. No question. Just a monologue. She said she understood now. She said the silence hurt worse than 1,000 arguments. She said she hadn't meant to hurt me, but admitted that her wants had been louder than her conscience. She talked about therapy, about regret, about wishing she could undo what had been done. I read it once. Then I archived it. Not out of cruelty. not out of anger, but because something in me had shifted beyond the need for answers or validation. Her story was no longer mine to fix, and mine was no longer hers to shape. The wedding date came and went. I spent the day hiking alone on a trail we'd always talked about but never actually visited. At the summit, the view was wider than anything I'd felt in weeks. Cold wind, clear sky, no distractions. I stood there for a while, breathing. No music, no ring, no ghost of who I thought I was supposed to be. And for the first time, I didn't feel broken. I felt free. After that, things moved slowly, but forward. I canceled the venue, donated the wedding decor to a local community center, took a break from social media. I even started seeing a therapist, not because of her, but because I finally wanted to understand why I had spent so much of my life trying to be chosen instead of simply being seen. It was during one of those therapy sessions that I realized the most important thing. Being soft wasn't my flaw. It was my compass. My ability to care deeply, to feel fully, to love quietly, that wasn't weakness. It was strength that had been left unrecognized in a world that too often celebrates noise. I didn't rush into another relationship. I didn't need to. I started doing little things I'd put off for years. I took a solo weekend to the coast. I started writing again, not about pain, but about hope. I rebuilt my apartment the way I liked it. No compromises. No echoes of her. And then, months later, at a quiet bookstore downtown, I met someone. Her name was Elsie. She wasn't loud. She wasn't dazzling in the way Brielle was. She was subtle. She listened more than she spoke. She noticed the small things. She complimented my awkwardness instead of trying to fix it. She laughed at my long-winded tangents. She asked questions that made me think harder, not smaller. And the first time she reached across the table and gently touched my hand, I didn't feel nervous. I felt seen. No fireworks. Just warmth. Steady. Safe. Real. I don't know where it's going, and for the first time, I'm not obsessed with knowing. I'm not trying to prove myself or audition for love. I'm just showing up as I am, and that's enough. So, yeah. She walked in that night smiling, thinking she still had control. She didn't know the man standing in front of her was finally done begging to be enough. She didn't know the silence would be louder than any scream. And she didn't know that losing her would be the first step toward finding me. The trap wasn't the suitcase or the envelope. The real trap was believing I had to be someone else to deserve loyalty. I'm out of it now. And the air's never felt cleaner.